thanks for coming on today. This is JavaScript Girl in a .NET World, and I'm Alyssa Nicoll. With me, I have Ed Charbeneau, and we're going to be talking about the future of the web in .NET and what that might look like. I know there's, obviously Blazor as like the go-to, but Ed was telling me this morning that there's like another way. I don't know.
There is yet
Are
another
we
way.
like we're excited about it? Is it scary? Tell us, Ed. .NET for any JavaScript app. Is this about the JavaScript invocable method, or has nothing to do with that?
Yes, kind of.
Yeah. Yes. Wait.
So they've updated some things.
Oh my God, I'm so excited. I took some pictures of some code, so I'm gonna go pull up my code pictures. Sam was like, "What are you doing?" Because I was like, "Hold still," and I was like taking pictures of his computer. But because I was seeing how he was using essentially .NET and JavaScript and .NET to do the interop. So if this is like that, but like updated, oh my God, I'm so excited. Ed, show us.
So this is a little bit more complex than using the Blazor interop, and the article even explains this at the end. But this is really cool because you can do this with any front end now. You can even do it with one of my favorite frameworks, Vanilla.js. That's always a fan favorite right there.
I'm in the kitchen because this is my happy place. I've been really stressed out lately. So I think it's because Ed, did you have a place in your house where you always did homework? Like
homework?
Yeah.
I never did homework, so probably not. I was a terrible student.
I got home, I sat down at the dining room table and did my homework. And it's just like my happy place. So I'm sitting here, like, I don't know, it's where I find my zen. So it's less professional, but you got to deal with like the weird ducks and stuff in the background. Okay. Yeah. But no, CodeMonkey was saying that they love this new JavaScript in .NET 7. So .NET 7, how old is she?
.NET 7 is in the first release candidate. Let's see, it says it somewhere in here. Where did it say? Where does it say it?
Okay. .NET 7's in the first release candidate, which means start using it right now or wait?
It means that it is still a beta essentially, but it is go live ready. So you can start working with it, and this is the version that will ship in November. There should not be any breaking changes. There will be an update.
Wait, are you saying like right now there's no breaking changes, or in November there's no breaking changes?
There should not be any more breaking changes now that it is a release candidate.
Do you update, and maybe this is too personal and you can always be like, Alyssa, I'm not going to answer that question live on stream. Do you update for release candidates, or do you wait until they're like RTM or whatever the flip we call them?
I usually have all of the previews installed as they go along, but that's just because of what we do. If you're depending on what your IT policies are and stuff at work, that might depend on whatever the job lets you do. RC1 technically supported in production.
Is that what you said when you were?
I don't know. Jeff, if you're still in chat, is that true? I don't get into the whole support stuff too often.
RC1.
No, generally release candidate means they're not going to break anything else.
But that doesn't necessarily mean production support?
Yeah, I don't know if it means you get production support yet. But we'll go over all this code here in a minute. It's really cool.
Oh, it says, so in their Microsoft blogs, it says on the 14th, today we announced .NET 7 release candidate. This is the first of 2 release candidates for .NET 7 that are supported in production. So.
Okay. Yeah, so it is supported in production. That's even better. Yep. So this is good, fresh bits to play with and start thinking about how to integrate this into apps you might be building. Yeah, everybody's going to have different preferences around what they want to use at work, and some people are not going to be comfortable deploying a preview or not a preview, but a release candidate into production. But you can start building what you're going to be releasing in November to production.
Okay.
With this would be a good middle of the road recommendation. So like you're building a product that's going to ship by the end of the year or maybe early next year, you can go ahead and start using .NET 7 release candidate now.
Okay.
Preparing that product to release when .NET 7 is in full production mode.
I see.
Since it is going to release in November, like you can start greenfielding your app with this now.
Oh my gosh, hang on. Hold on, you're going fast. .NET Workload install WASM tools.
Oh, I'm not trying to go too fast. Okay, let's start from the top. So there is a brand new JavaScript Interop for .NET.
So excited.
That has removed the dependency on Blazor. So you now have the ability to build .NET WebAssembly-based applications without the Blazor UI framework. So this means you can use any JavaScript client that you'd like, along with the .NET runtime running in WebAssembly. There's some examples here that we'll talk about in the blog post. They have some live demos as well, so we could probably click on that. This is a basic to-do list app.
What is it built in? Oh my God, what is it
This
built in?
is built in
Explain
.NET.
it to me.
This is completely
it's built in .NET.
.NET.
What does that mean? You're saying it's like C# files?
Yes, there's C# files, generic vanilla JavaScript also behind this. But all of the heavy lifting is being done by .NET.
I'm so excited. So if we can see the live thing, that means we can see the code?
Yes. So the code is here. And let's go ahead and open it up so we can bounce over to it and look at it. And I'm going to do this mode instead of looking at it just straight through GitHub. We can just pull it up in the GitHub friendly
this is so
editor,
exciting.
the code editor. And then let's talk about what it is. So to do MVC, don't let the MVC part fool you. If you're familiar with ASP.NET MVC, this is not the MVC they are talking about in this blog post. The MVC in this context just stands for the pattern of model view controller. It doesn't mean this is ASP.NET MVC. So just following that code pattern of MVC only. So we're not using like Razor views or anything like that. There's no HTTP traffic or any of those sort of things.
I'm working on an napalm. He slacked it to me, so I'm waiting on Slack to boot up.
You want a link to this article? I can post that in chat. So there is the article that we're looking at right now.
So there's this like thing with MacBooks that as soon as you mention getting a new one, the old one, even if you don't have the new one yet, starts having these bizarre problems it's never had before. And so just opening Slack right now is a struggle for her because she knows her replacement is on the way.
Yeah, mine must have known its replacement was on its way from day one because it never worked right. Never worked. I mean,
they can hear you, Ed. They can hear you.
I've never had an OS get corrupt, but this one actually got corrupt on me. So, congrats for being my first corrupted OS, Mac OS.
Wow.
Yeah, never had that happen on Windows ever. So to do MVC, it's the to-do app that I just showed you here. You could type in your items and add those to a list. And,
who wrote this article and made these things?
So this is I think there's this to-do. Where is it? To-do app.
You should send them our
mentions
money.
It in here. Community project where like the to do MVC is written in all of the literally frameworks. Everything.
Yes. Yeah.
So they added a WebAssembly.NET version.
I'm just wondering if it's someone that I may have potentially ran into within the past, year and complained that there wasn't. I'm wondering if I've met him because I was like, why is there no to-do apps in .NET? That's how I learn. And like literally like examples in to-do form because that's like all the JavaScript languages. You want to learn React? Here's your to-do app. Is there? Well, because I was looking for Maui specifically, and I was like,
well, Maui's brand new. They just probably haven't made it yet. I really don't see any. I don't see any Blazor or anything.
I know. It's because no one in the .NET community believes in the To-Do app. They just think
To-Do app.
What is that
to be
about?
honest,
That's literally like how I was taught. Like each new thing, like here's your To-Do app. And so when I was like learning .NET, I was like, "Where's my To-Do app?"
not only that, this is using the MVC pattern, and that doesn't work very well in
I know.
Blazor,
I'm going to Fuel.
from my opinion.
Don't steal my idea. What did you just say
Everybody
about Blazor?
loves the counter. Just that MVC, the pattern MVC doesn't work well in Blazor, in my opinion. It has its own. It's more of a model view presenter already, and when you try to do MVC with it, it's just too much. It's just extra steps.
All right, Ed, I might need to talk with you after work because Fuel is apparently trying to race me to make the To-Do Maui app version, and
I did make one for Blazor though. It's on my GitHub.
Did you?
It's just not. Quote.
Can you plop it on there? Yeah. Like
I assume anybody can. It. It's not a quote MVC the style app though, so I don't think it works with this. It is a to-do, but it's not a to-do MVC. There's not a model view controller pattern behind it. So
yeah, but if it's the way that you're supposed to do Blazor, right? Like,
yeah.
So I don't know. I feel like we need to expand things a bit because I think when that was first written, it was at a very like funnel view of what the web looks like and what frameworks look like on the web.
Especially for an MVC or a to-do app is a little bit overkill in my opinion, but we'll get to that in a minute. But anyway, that's where the idea comes from, is this to-do MVC community project. So
do we have Fritz is saying, do we have Telerik components to do application? What is he saying? Is he asking about a demo app? What are the words?
I guess
what?
We could make a Telerik to do component appliation. That would help anybody.
It doesn't exist right now because nobody in .NET believes in the To-Do app.
Boring. They don't represent anything in real world that you ever touch. But that's my opinion. I think they're it's a kitchen sink demo app.
Oh, a kitchen sink demo. I think like the dashboard.
So
one is like
I created a kitchen sink style demo app.
Oh, did you?
But it has been deemed too complex and replaced. So if you go find the old version of the Blazing Coffee Warehouse, it has a lot more demo-y things in it. Now it's been boiled down to a simple data grid and a chart, where it used to have quite a bit of real-world complexity to it. So if you go look up the older version of this, it's quite nice. It does a lot of things. I won't go into the whole details of it, but yeah, we've had those, and they're generally not favorable from beginners. So we went for a more beginner-minded thing. It's more of like a Hello World style thing. So to get this to work, first of all, there's a new workload, which I do not have installed. Looks like there's two of them.
Hang on, I need to install
too. Deemed experimental.
Install. Can you just say like is there a more generic .NET workload install, like for just all the things, or no? That's not a. Not a thing.
I don't think you'd want to do that. It'd probably nuke your system with so many files. I mean, there's a lot of SDKs out there for .NET. So let's go ahead and run this one and see what happens.
.NET. I'm typing what you're typing.
It is.
Where did you type it?
Loading up here. And then I should probably see, I'm trying to remember how to change the style on this. I forgot there is a file for configuring this thing. So I'm installing the workload now. Let me see if I can get a little bit more of a.
Hang on, I gotta go find the link that you put in the chat.
Sunrise Light. Let's try.
I can't click it. I need to click it.
Let's go with a different theme here. Maybe this will be a little bit easier to see on stream. There we go. Is that better?
Yes. Well, for me, bad eyes.
I don't normally go with light, but this seems to be more appropriate for streaming.
Right,
And we can zoom in as well.
I'm
So
gonna,
the
like,
workload is
follow
installed.
along.
And then if I install the other workload, it says the experimental workload has a template in it.
Are we ever worried, though, about clashing? Like, if I'm not on the RC and then I download this, like, workload and things are going to be like, "Rrr, rrr, rrr." Is that not a thing? We're not worried about that.
You can install these side by side. That you can create a file that will tell the project which version to use. So it is called a global.json file, and you can target the .NET framework that you want that app to target. And then Fritz says, I might know the guy who wrote this Learn module that teaches you how to build a to-do app. So I'm assuming I can't click links in.
Here, I'll click it. I'll click it in Twitch.
Assuming that Jeff might have wrote one of those.
How do you see the author of the module?
So once you install these, you should be able to do a .NET WASM browser and create an app. So I'm gonna let's get this back up to the top of the screen, and let's center it a little bit too, because I know when it gets to the bottom, it's hard to see on stream. I hate looking at the end of the screen to try to do stuff.
.NET workload.
So we can do a cd source
Sudo .NET workload. Yeah, I have to do sudo all the time. Is that weird? When I'm, like, updating my workloads, no one's worried. Napalm said, so this might have gotten missed, and I'm genuinely curious. So theoretical WASM without Blazor opens the door for new C# front-end frameworks.
That is absolutely correct. You can write your own.
Oh God!
Have a blast. You could use Vue. You could use Vue would probably be one of the easier ones.
What the frick is wrong with you?
Let's use jQuery. Why not?
No. What? Angular.
Let's use jQuery.
Okay, fine.
So we could do .NET New WASM browser. It says no templates found matching.
Oh my God, I'm so excited.
So that.
What does it look like? Like, you know how in a Maui app or a Maui Blazor hybrid app, you'll have the web view that's, like, provided from Blazor? Does it look like that, but instead of, like, it just, like, says, like, WASM something?
So this is going to be very bare bones, I think. There's not going to be a whole lot here, except for the internet or the interop dependencies. So you're not going to get a whole front end framework with this. And I don't see the template. Install .NET 7 RC SDK, check. Install the workloads, check. Okay. I do not get that. Did not work.
Sudo .NET workload.
Let's double check that.
Workload
and
install.
then I will check my .NET version too.
WASM tools. Ed.
Oh, this is stuck on 6. That's why.
.NET version. How do you download the latest .NET version in your terminal? Or do you have to go press the button on the website?
Download the latest RC SDK?
Yes, you click the button.
You go to the website.
I thought you were going to show me some cool command prompt.
I don't use the command prompt unless I need it. Let's
see.
Really?
Oh.
Yeah.
Look, do you want to see something funny? I was teaching my son this morning about viruses and bacteria, and this is how I taught.
C# Fritz says winget.net.
Winget. Oh my God, what is this Winget? Oh my God, I'm so excited.
Yeah.
Winget.
Y'all have fun with that.
Wait,
I'm gonna just.
You're saying Winget is a bad
installer.
thing? Oh, Ed's all about
it works this way, unless you're doing like DevOps or something, and you need to install through the command line. I get it.
Have you ever actually done DevOps?
No, I find it not compelling.
Yes.
Does
I think so.
work on Mac? Is that a Mac thing?
Choco?
I have
Well,
chocolatey.
how do
Winget
what do
install. There
what
you
is our score?
go. Fritz has your answer.
He does?
Winget
Where?
install Mac or Microsoft.NET SDK preview.
Ooh, who is this Winget?
So now that I have the right tools here, I should be able to do a new directory.
Oh, Choco's like homebrew. I wonder if I could use homebrew to do it.
Tempt? Okay. Tempt is fine. I meant temp, but I slipped another T in there, so it's very tempting to just go ahead and use this. Tempt. I'm scared to delete anything on a live stream because of what happened last time. So let's see.
We're going to test out homebrew while you're doing this.
So .NET new WASM browser.
WASM.
So now we have, okay, let's see what it gave us. So let's do code dot.
Is Ruby a competitor for .NET?
Yeah, you could say it is. Ruby on Rails and MVC were competitors for a long time. You could say that Ruby on Rails came first, even.
Did it?
It did.
You think it's older?
Oh yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, that's where they got the idea for MVC.
Shut the front door. That's crazy.
Inspired by. Yeah. That's
bananas to me. Because that means that because everyone talks about .NET about how old it is and how long it's been around, but Ruby is not that old, right?
I think C# Fritz is going to start correcting me here, but
wait.
From my perspective, it was inspired by
1990. Good God. Woo! She's as old as I am.
From my personal memories of that history, that's how it happened. That's all I'll say.
And you know what? I think Ed should really just tell us all how history went down, right? His memories is just what
this is history from in my world. Yeah, Ruby was released in 1995. What about Ruby on Rails though?
But surely if Homebrew handles my Ruby stuff, it can handle my .NET stuff. Ruby on Rails was 2004.
And then let's see.
And .NET was in 2001. I thought.
Yeah, that's not what I'm talking about though. .NET ASP, .NET MVC, one release date 2009. Bum bum bum. That's what I'm talking about right there. So 5 years after Ruby on the Rails.
Oh, cool. That's awesome.
So, putting apples with apples on that one. You could say other things, .NET web things were around before, but Ruby was the MVC.
That's so weird. I had no idea.
Framework that everybody was using.
Cool.
That
was the first backend
MVC
thing that I ever used in production was Ruby on Rails. And so I have a lot of experience with Ruby, and it's weird to think that it predated this.
I didn't like Rails as much. I liked the language. I didn't like the framework, and the ecosystem was a little wonky too.
I only know Ruby on Rails, so I really couldn't speak to Ruby without it. It's like not knowing JavaScript, just knowing Angular. It's the same thing. I really only know Rails.
I don't know if it's still on my GitHub. I had a card game I built with it.
Oh, nice.
GitHub.
Is it really? Are you saying GitHub as in
I might have taken
everything that's on GitHub, or everything that GitHub is built in? Which one, Nathan? Python class. So I did learn a little bit of Python and a little bit of PHP back in the day, but Rails really won it over in the companies that I was at.
It's my Ruby on Rails card game.
GitHub, not GitHub content. Okay. Oh, it's up. Is it up? That's so cool.
Yeah, it's in here.
I
even have the PSD files for it. So some of the cards that I designed. They were all themed with code stuff.
You went all in. That's funny.
Yeah, I made an entire deck of cards for this. I was doing it with the treehouse learning stuff.
Oh man, treehouse.
Yep. All right, back to the subject. So I ran the .NET new WASM browser. This is what it gave me. I have an index page. I have a main.js. I have a program CS. We have a README.
Okay.
A
We're going
runtime
really fast.
template JSON file.
Okay. This is so
and
cool.
a
Oh my god, this is so cool.
CS proj file. And
So
the
this
CS
is
proj
just
file.
it's just for web.
Mm-hmm.
And
This is just
the
web
item group.
things. So we're basically doing WebAssembly with the .NET runtime, with no Blazor with this template. Something else that's kind of interesting here is we'll skip ahead for a second and then we'll go loop back to it.
Oh my god, this is so cool.
Under optimizing the app here, it talks about the performance of the interop and the fact that you can create an AOT compiled binary for this. So this essentially is going to let you build a compiled version of this app. So you can actually compile this to WebAssembly. So normally you get the interpreted DLLs,
Yes.
the libraries. So
Yes.
you can actually compile this to WASM code and have it run directly in the browser. So
I'm very confused. Cool. So you're saying if you make a new WASM browser applet thingy, the way that it works by default is to make this DLL and that runs, but you're saying you could
compile directly to WebAssembly.
I don't think
instead of running on the interpreted .NET runtime, it'll compile the entire app to WebAssembly.
I assumed it had to go to WebAssembly. Like that was the end stop, because to run in a browser, you need either WASM or JavaScript, period.
So in the default mode, the .NET runtime is compiled to WebAssembly, and it loads your DLL file, which is compiled to the common language runtime. That DLL file runs through an interpreter that's using the .NET runtime. It runs in an interpreted mode, rather, in the .NET runtime. It talks about it in the article here. But you can compile this to where all of your code is WebAssembly, and it runs a lot faster, but your code gets heavier. So you get a bigger payload in bytes. So let's see, to run this, I don't think it does anything. What is it going to do? Let's see what's in our main.js. So this is, I guess, the important part here is you import the module .NET from .NET.js. This is the interop in the runtime.
Okay.
This is your bits.
Oh my god.
That you're going to run. And
oh my god.
It's checking to see if it's a browser. I don't quite understand why. I don't know what else you could try to run this on, but this is checking to make sure that you are in fact in a browser.
What does .NET give us? Like, what is attached to this .NET?
.NET gives you some interfaces with JavaScript and .NET. So I'll show you those in a second too. Just importing some more modules here. Set
this is
module
so cool.
Imports, get assembly imports, get config, run and exit. So setting up
I'm confused because when you opened up the CS proj, there was nothing that looked like the web view from Blazor. Like there was there's is it generating like a little wrapper tag or something?
Nope. This is just generic vanilla JavaScript.
Can you open the index?
Sure.
Does he have one?
HTML has a body. It doesn't have a span ID of out. It looks like that's what's being used to locate this span and then inject some sort of message in here. But again, you could delete that out of there and use like, what's it called? Vue.js or something instead, or jQuery, or just more vanilla JavaScript. So it sets the module import as main.js. I believe this is bootstrapping the app. So set module imports is saying that go look at main.js and window location href global. It's routing maybe here. So we're importing main.js, which is itself.
Importing main.js. So
it's navigating.
How does like, okay, the Maui Blazor hybrid app. If I wanted to do the Maui Blazor hybrid app, but with this instead.
So in Maui, it does not recommend this for Maui.
Why?
I don't
what
know.
The frick? Why?
I don't know what the restriction is. It does say at the end if you're using.
It does? Interop? What does it say?
If you're using Maui.
Yes, there's a new interop. JavaScript Interop. It should be faster. No, we were reading that. It was so cool.
The new interop with JS import and export, which we'll look at, is available for Blazor WebAssembly apps. It's useful when you need to integrate with the browser and client side only. This excludes the Blazor server. So if you want to use this with, don't use this with import export with Blazor server. So if you ever plan on running your app in Blazor server, don't use those.
Okay.
And it says if you want to use server or native hybrid app.
Does that mean Maui?
IJS runtime. That would mean Maui. So,
but why?
It says,
but why?
Does JSON serialization and remote dispatch. I don't know. The JSON serialization thing is helpful. Makes things a lot easier. The remote dispatch part, I understand how this fits into server. I'm not 100% sure how that works with Maui. This might be something to do with how it interfaces with the web view. So there may be issues using this on Maui. Yeah, because Maui isn't WebAssembly. That's why. So,
what?
Yep.
Can you explain what you just said? But you were all like, I understand, and I didn't get the light bulb moment.
Maui is not WebAssembly. Maui is using the native .NET runtime already.
But we all already agree that the native .NET runtime goes to WebAssembly. Didn't we agree to that? Wasn't that why we have that moment together?
So you want to use IJS runtime.
Okay, IJS runtime is definitely what I want to look into, but this is so cool. Don't you think it'll one day...
Because you could build a web application using Angular with this. If you wanted to run some NuGet packages or something out of the .NET world along with those, you could do that.
Code Monkey said, so you could write all your business logic in C# and your UI code in React or Angular or just plain HTML.
Yep.
So, but we can't then take that application and like ship it to desktop with Maui because you're saying we want to use the IJS runtime for that side of life.
Yeah.
So this is only for web.
Yeah, this is only for WebAssembly. These are WebAssembly only conventions. So this is still pretty cool though. So what we have in Program CS is the actual application from the code. They use the term controller in here. I still find this very confusing because when I think of MVC, I think of ASP.NET MVC, not just the pattern of model view controller. But this is called a controller. And it imports the dependencies that it needs, the JavaScript files that it needs to run.
Oh my God.
So it uses this JS.
Wait, are we in a proj file? What file are we in?
Yeah, this is a, if we look at the
oh my God, that's so cool. Shut up.
We are in the program CS file. And yeah, I need to zoom.
Okay, so we're inside that, and then we've got this JavaScript host boy. Who's he from? Is he from? What's he from?
line 18 and 19, this JS host is coming from the interop services here. So system.runtime interop services JavaScript. So we've got JS host import async.
Which is different than the IJS runtime.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, cool. Woo! Okay, I got it. So now we got this JavaScript guy and he's import async. So this is how we're like getting...
This is pointing to the JavaScript files that it
Can you show us what's in like Vue.js or something so we can see like what it's importing? Is it there?
So
where is it?
We're going to pull these in. It's also creating a new store, which we'll look at that. This store here is kind of like a Redux pattern type of a thing, where this is our data store, and then the view, and they have corresponding JavaScript files that deal with these as well. So we've got our store and our view.
Ready.
We knew up a controller with a store and a view.
Controller question mark. This is so cool. This like makes so much sense.
So if we
What's up with the JS export on 27 though? Why isn't that like the bottom of the file?
Okay, so there's some terminology here that is unique to this new JavaScript interop stuff. There's JS export. This is telling the JavaScript side of the world that this is a valid method that JavaScript
like, is that
can
like
invoke.
A decorator? That's like decorating the thing below it, not a... Oh, okay.
This is similar to what we use in Blazor with the JS invocable attribute.
Okay.
So this JS export, this is akin to like saying export in JavaScript. So if we look at a JavaScript file just for a frame of reference, let's see if helper.js has one. Like export function, this is kind of the same terminology that we're looking at here. So it's just saying that this is exporting the on has changed method to the JavaScript world, so it can be called by JavaScript. And there is a JS import as well. So if we jump over, let's take a look at store.js.
Wait, what's the flip side? What's the flip side of it? Like if you're in a JavaScript, the
JavaScript calling into .NET.
Yeah. What is .NET export? Or does that happen?
Trying to remember. Get assembly config main export. No,
oh, it looks different. It's not going to be the same brackets.
I know it's being used in here.
Oh, it is?
Not in the store. It is in. It's in the article too. In the view, I think there's something that calls back into .NET. And this is all running stuff in like. We'll look at it in a second. I know it's in the article. There's some methods that you're going to execute to do that.
So fun.
So the store is just basically wrapping the browser local storage and just storing the to-do list.
Cool.
It's what it's going to be used for. So you set local storage, pass in the JSON data to it, and it's going to stash that in local storage. And then when you get local storage, it's going to pull using that key whatever data is in there out. And then store CS has some stuff. So this is just telling us it's an in-memory database, and it's got a list of to-do items and a get local storage list of items. And then this is calling the interop.get local storage. So we've registered this get local storage method with the interop, which we saw back in the main programs, yes. So in store, sorry, is store.cs. No, that is store.cs. Where was this at? I know I saw it in here.
This is so cool.
But it's telling It's telling the interop to execute the get local storage function, which is this guy here.
On the last file you were in, is that a comment on line 14? What's up with the hash?
Line 14. This is a region. So in Visual Studio, this will collapse. Oh, you can do it in here too. It just sets like a area that you can hide and show.
Oh, it's not actually running in the like
no
code or anything. Okay.
So people frown on these. I don't have a problem with it. I think they're just fine. They're just used to kind of denote like a group of things that kind of work together. But they can be misused. Like people will use these for making really big code files that probably should be broken to different files, and
I see.
It leads to bad habits. But
okay,
I
that's
think
really
they
cool.
can
I've
be
never
helpful
seen
if
that
they're
before.
used right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So we registered the interop, I guess in program CS right here. So this is where those things get hooked up. JS host import async. So the import async, when it goes in, pulls this file in, I believe it registers those. And this is all outlined in the article, by the way, which I very quickly read before jumping on the show. So we can run that from here, saying interop get local storage, as well as set local storage. And here it's passing the .NET stuff into, the list of items into local storage. Then there's an insert, update. So this is where there's some .NET code. So the only thing it's really doing in JavaScript is telling local storage what to store and when to get it out. As far as managing the items in the to-do list, all that's being done in .NET. So if we were to update the list, it's going
Which is like so cool, because like this right here is what I've always wanted, just to like, I know it sounds so stupid, but like to understand this language.
It's not stupid. So it's doing all the business logic in .NET, and then it's bare minimum JavaScript here, just saying, now that I've done all the work, store it in local storage or get it from local storage.
So cool.
So if there's an existing to-do app, it like dedupes them, I guess. If there's is equal to it's existing is null. So if it didn't find a duplicate, it adds it to
it.
Yeah.
To-dos. So to-dos is an array, or what's he? Where did he come from?
To-dos
is what's his type?
List. It's a list of item.
So this is like the crazy part, because like JavaScript doesn't have lists. So what the frick is it storing? Like I'm dying to know. It's an
array. It's basically an array of items. Yeah.
Or is it an object?
It's a fancy array. So item is an object. List is a collection of items. So it's very similar to an array. It just has more capabilities than an array. An array in .NET is a kind of a fixed thing that you have a hard time adding and removing items from.
And that's why you
without resizing the array. A list can be resized. It kind of wraps that functionality. So you can add things to a list and remove items from a list. And
they've got this like immutability going on, don't they? With that, because like they're defining live to-dos. They're not setting it on to-do, right? Like they're modifying live to-do until they like finally, right? Like is that because they're like trying to be immutable? Is that what's happening here?
Not sure. They're mutating it because they're adding directly to it.
Oh, okay.
So they're getting the list out of storage, adding an item to it, then setting it back into storage. And then for update, they're getting the storage, checking to see if something exists. I'm not sure why this logic is written the way it is, but sure, we'll go with it. We'll check and see.
It seems very sensible. No?
Yeah, it seems overkill.
What's wrong with it?
Just at a glance, it seems overkill.
The checking of existence, or?
Yeah, I think there's another way to do that, but
you just want to slap a question mark on it?
Yeah. Pretty sure there's another way to do that.
So if it exists, else set local storage to-dos. This makes sense.
It adds it. If it
title is not null,
or if it does exist already, then it checks the title,
value.
and then it.
So question.
Completed, there's something that does with completed. Then it sets the local storage again. Removing. We're gonna go to local storage, find the item.
Like, long is a type of number that is like really memory intensive, right? Aren't you? Oh, because they have on that. Yeah, that one.
Long's a pretty large integer.
But it's fine. We can just use it.
Yeah, I think there's some reasoning for it in the article.
Oh, cool.
So it goes in, it finds it, and then I don't see it actually removing it. Let's see, get local storage where.
I've never seen this syntax before. So like in the parameters where it says like remove long question mark space ID. So this is saying these are optional parameters, right? Like, and it's weird that the optionality is like on the type. Wouldn't it be? Could you also do with the question mark on long 959?
Oh, that question mark means it could be null.
Wait, it could meaning it doesn't need that parameter in order to remove it.
It does need it, but apparently it can be null. I don't see a null check in here either. So.
Really? I thought it just meant you didn't need it.
Yeah, I mean this is demo code. I'm not gonna pick it apart too much. The string can be null for title. This boolean can be null as well.
Okay, but if it wasn't there, you're saying it wouldn't let remove run. Like it has to have it, right?
Yeah, I'm saying most cases it's probably going to have it. So this is an inline function here that's checking to see if the item is there, and then it marks it as completed or not, and then it saves the entire list. Region is a code smell. They're still debating regions. So in these, there are these interop partial classes, and these are defining the JavaScript interop. So dynamic dependency, JSON type info, JSON serializer context. Let's see, get local storage. We're doing, this is what the article says, like this is taken care of by Blazor already. So this is additional work that you have to do if you're just writing against WebAssembly.
Oh god.
So it's pulling JSON out of the JavaScript browser storage, the JavaScript based browser storage. So out of local storage comes JSON data, and it has to get turned into a list of items. So it's going to use JSON serializer to deserialize that JSON into a list of items.
Is this what Sam was explaining to me of like there are these differences with like basic APIs like between JavaScript and .NET, and so like you have to level the playing field to like the lowest common denominator and so that they can match up? Is that what this deserializing is doing?
Yeah, so we're getting JSON out of JavaScript. So JSON is a kind of a list of objects in JSON notation or JavaScript notation. And .NET uses classes and objects. So we got to turn that JSON data, which is essentially a string in .NET, to a list of actual items. Okay. So when we call JSON serializer deserialize, it's going to take this JSON and interpret that to the type that we give it. Okay. So we get back a list of item from the JSON data. Now in Blazor, this just automatically happens. We just say, we're going to run this code and we're going to get back a list of items. And because it's Blazor, it assumes that the JSON is there and it deserializes it.
Oh, okay, but that step is happening. It's just not one that you have to kick off.
Yeah, you just don't have to explicitly tell it to do it. Okay. So this is kind of the inner workings of what happens in Blazor already.
With Blazor, like, what does that line of code look like then? Do you just say, here's the JSON, and then it like handles it? Or is there some special wrapper that you need to like Blazor JSON?
No, you just say like from JavaScript, we're going to get a list of items, and it's like, okay. And it just does this under the hood. It's like it's just built in. We do this in MVC as well. So MVC does a lot of serialization by itself. So when you're working with your controller, your web API, you send JSON data to the server, and the server is just like, okay, it's going to be a list of item when it comes in, and it'll automatically serialize that for you.
Okay.
Or deserialize it. And then when you set the local storage, you're going to serialize that back to JSON data. And then this JS import, this is importing that function from the store.js. That's what I was looking for earlier. And then it connects it to this method name here.
Internal static partial void. Good God, could we have any more modifiers on this thing? Like, yeah. What the frick? That's so overwhelming to me.
Static,
are those needed? Do we need those?
This means we're not going to need to new up a class. It's kind of a global.
Okay.
It's partial, so there's something happening probably with the compiler that is defining other pieces of the same class. So it's getting merged with another
is partial
class by the
one,
same
like,
name.
Partial is the one that says I can be altered. Is that one or no? Yes.
Yeah. So you can have two definitions of a class in two different files, and the compiler, seeing that they are partial, will compile them together.
Oh.
This is handy when the compiler's creating
weird
code for you. So there's code being generated under this class name, but you still need to extend it. So this
yeah. That's
alleviates the problem of like generated code where you ever opened a file and it's like, do not touch this file because something is going to regenerate this file.
Yes.
And anything you put in here custom is going to die in that process.
So
this fixes that. So you can say, okay, I'm never going to touch that code. I should never modify.
Can you explain the static part then? What is the static part?
It means when we new up, or we don't need a new up in interop class. We don't have to say new interop to execute one of its methods.
Because when I hear static, I hear like, I'm not going to be changed. I am unchangeable. Is that not what that means?
No, these are classes that aren't going to. We don't need an instance of to execute their methods. We can just execute the methods. They're kind of like a global class.
Okay.
In a sense.
I see. So we're not going to do it. What's the opposite of static?
Just nothing. Just regular class.
You take it away
and
then it's going to expect
and you
it
have
to be newed up.
Instantiate a new foo of interop to actually access the members of it.
Okay. And so then down below, when we have our set local storage and our get local storage, internal because you don't want anybody else to access it, static because it doesn't need to be new up, partial because it's going to be modified, void because it's not returning anything, I guess, and then string because it is returning something.
Yeah, the JS import, this is decorating this this function.
Napalm said, never heard that question before. The opposite of static, transient.
I don't know. That could be the word for it. It's just
default.
It's the default. Yeah, it's not. You don't need to explicitly set it to anything else. So set local storage is the function name within JS. Here, let's see. Just try this. Open in a to the side. Yeah, there we go. So there we go. That'll help. And then we can do this. So this.
What did you just do? What did you
JS
just do?
import is that function in JavaScript, and it's coming from this file. So there's store.js. So it says in here.
Those things are decorating that set local storage method.
So when we call
wait a minute.
Storage,
are they like is that like brackets bit there on 106 where it's like JavaScript import? It's like saying take this JavaScript method and then turn it into this crap.
It's saying when I call this in .NET.
What the frick? Yeah.
When I call that in .NET, go to JavaScript and call this from here.
Is it modifying it at all though? Like,
The compiler's got to be doing something with it, hence the
okay.
partial. So it's getting cues from this to generate whatever it needs to wire these two things up.
Are those called decorators? I need to like read more
They're
about
attributes.
those. Attributes. Okay, I'm writing this down.
Yeah, this is the JS import. Let's see here. You can see it in the text here too.
What?
In the here.
This is so
See,
cool. Ed.
JS export attribute.
JS export attribute. Hang on. You're hurting my head. What? What am I looking at? Oh, I see. Oh, because those are called attributes. I'm with you.
There's actually a literal class name to this somewhere. JS export attribute.
Oh.
You don't have to specify the attribute part because it's an attribute. It understands that you don't, what your intent is. But that's what the braces. That's what the braces mean. So you don't have to write the word attribute.
That is exactly the goal, Napalm. But then I'm also, even though everyone keeps telling me it's not possible, going to figure out how to do it in Maui.
And you can actually write your own attributes as well.
Ooh, have you done this?
Yes, I have.
You want to show us?
I don't know if I have that on my GitHub page or not. You can write your own, and then you can inspect them at runtime.
Take the cliff. I've never heard of this saying. Ed, have you heard of you're going to take the cliff? What does that even mean? Like I'm going to go diving?
No idea.
Cliff diving?
Yeah, I haven't heard that one before. I wrote a menu for
take the bridge.
Route.
Sounds British.
They need to make the search better in GitHub. Yeah.
Because it's written in Rails. Got him.
I did a thing with the router in
that's a Merc, I think?
in Blazor. So it's really not that difficult to do, but what you can do in Blazor is say you want how in Blazor you route let's look at any Blazor application. So if we look at a Blazor page like this one, see how it has the route data at the top? If I wanted to build a menu that would automatically just look for this, you can actually use attributes for that. So you could add an attribute to this that says, I want to show on the menu, and you could add other metadata to it. So when the menu component finds that attribute, it says, okay, I want to be displayed in the menu at a certain hierarchy, and there may be something that controls whether that's disabled in the menu or not. So you can build stuff like that. And I did that with Blazor before. I have a sample of it somewhere where you can build out your whole menu system with attributes.
Is that okay to do that? Like, is that frowned upon? Like, people aren't like, why would you do it in the attribute like that, you heathen?
No, and I even hijacked some existing attributes that were already there. So there's a lot of them for, we use these for forms a lot. So let's see if it's in here. In data, maybe? Form, nope.
I'll read it for you, Screenshot. It said, the act of suicide, usually a I'd never heard of this before. I didn't know it was a saying. I'm learning every day, man.
No, I don't know. I don't have the example. But use this in forms a lot. So a lot of it's with validation. You're like, I want this to validate if it's required. And you just put a required attribute around it, and then all of a sudden that thing is required from now on.
It's required. Okay.
So that's
so cool. I love this. Yeah, that's really neat. This is so cool, Ed. I am just so excited to go through at a much slower pace, because there's a lot, I feel like, not only about the interop between the two worlds, but just basic C#. This is so at my speed. This is so on my level.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on in this demo. The store is really
So
easy.
cool.
When you get into the view, that's when things go kind of off the rails.
Why is it off the rails? What's wrong with it?
Because we don't have a front-end framework. We have to control the entire view of this by ourselves.
Right.
Look at all the imports on this one, the interops. We're going to initialize the view, clear the to-do, show the items, set the items. There's a lot of things that we just normally like data bind to with Blazor or Vue or React or whatever.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things that are wiring up a lot of JavaScript code. This is where a majority of the
still
JavaScript
really
code
cool.
is. So if we
That's
look,
so
there's
cool.
JavaScript everywhere. And then there's another one called template that literally builds the list items and then injects them into the HTML.
It's a good goal.
Yeah.
It's a good goal in life.
So that's generally how it works. There's a lot of imports and exports in your JavaScript here, or exports rather. So you export the thing from JavaScript you want to run in .NET, and then if we look back at Vue, you import the thing that you want to execute in JavaScript.
Okay.
So it's using that import-export convention from JavaScript modules, ES6 modules. So wherever you see export, like bind add item, in the C# file, you're going to find a JS import of bind add item. And
wait, go back.
What that calls
go back to the JavaScript file. Wasn't it? Oh, I was looking to see.
View. There's bind add item.
Okay.
This is binding an event handler here.
Right.
So this is another attribute that's interesting. Marshal as. So this is telling JavaScript how to translate this thing.
Shut
or
up.
Vice versa. So
Shut
it's saying
up!
there is a method you need to call that gets a parameter that is a JavaScript type of number. Because remember, we have integers here. It's a long int that we're going to send as the event handler.
Yeah.
And JavaScript needs to know what that is going to become. So we're like, this is a number, JavaScript. Use the number as this item. And then there's also Marshal as JavaScript type function. So this one's saying I'm giving JavaScript, calling a JavaScript method that is going to return a callback function.
Yeah.
That maps to an action of string in .NET.
I don't think so. He was saying Marshall is another for serialize. I feel like serialize is doing something to it, whereas Marshall is just like typing, right? Like we're not changing it, or right? Like you're just saying, believe me, this is a number.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what it's needing to do under the hood. It's similar. Serializing is just with generic data. This is like typing things between the two languages. It's kind of shaping the metadata, I think, that it needs. Because this is saying that this is, on the JavaScript side of the world, this is a JS type of function which takes a string as an argument. And then we're going to get, in .NET, this is an action of string. And we're going to pass that into JavaScript, and this is what it's going to translate to.
This is so cool. So that's in the Vue file, okay? Because I'm going to need to go and I want to like look more deeply at this Vue file. It's not what I would have expected.
A lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
Because the Vue, so these are kind of reversed roles here. The business logic, which you'll find in the store.cs, there's a lot of .NET code because all the business logic stuff is in here, and we can write a lot of business logic in .NET because the browser, I mean, we could write this all in JavaScript and not do any .NET, but the browser is really good at doing UI stuff, and .NET's really good at doing business logic. So we're going to do all the business logic here. And then when we go to the view, this is all where JavaScript really shines. So we have to interact with the DOM somehow. Right. And we're not doing any work for .NET in here. We're just relying on JavaScript to do everything. So all we're doing is just telling the view what methods to execute in Vue.js. And then Vue.js is doing all of the finding things in the DOM and replacing them, or binding to events like button clicks and stuff. So
it's so intertwined. I would have expected it to be like, I'm just going to do it all over here with a couple of like APIs being passed. Mm-hmm. But like this app is so mixed. Like,
yeah.
Like and you're fine with that? Like, because I don't know.
I'm like, trying to find out where this really works well. And one of the ideas that I can think of just off the top of my head would be there's some NuGet packages out there that are really nice and easy to use that I've seen equivalents for in JavaScript, but they're not quite as easy and simple to use. Mm-hmm. So one of those is NuGet and MarkDig. You could grab MarkDig, which is a markdown processor for .NET, and you could use this in your Angular app if you wanted to, because of this runtime, the interop. And what makes MarkDig nice is it's really as simple as I have a string of markdown text.
Yeah.
And I can say markdown.toHTML, and that's going to parse it into HTML. Hmm. So you could use this in your interop and use the NuGet package in your React app and just say markdown to HTML somewhere, and you've got markdown processor in your app. I don't know what the JavaScript equivalent is. I know I looked at one before and it wasn't quite as easy to do this. So it's really a one-liner here in .NET. And then to do it the opposite way, there's another package that'll take HTML and turn it into Markdown in one line. And you can use those two things together to make a Markdown editor in whatever language you see fit. That would actually be fun if you want to take this and go like another level with it. So look at the live view of it. Like if you want, that's not the live one. Where's the live one? So if you wanted like to be able to put like Markdown here, you could actually like add that to this and like make these like Markdown enabled to do notes.
So this is still just web only. And if I feel like a lot of these concepts though of like talking back and forth between your JavaScript and your C#, is even if you are using an IJS runtime, like aren't these concepts going to be similar of like you have to use some sort of like deserialize for JSON, or you have to do some sort of retyping with what was it called? Where you're telling it
marshalling stuff.
Marshalling, yeah.
I don't know. The Blazor framework does a lot of this for you. And if you're using the Blazor web view in Maui, you get a lot of this stuff for free. I'm still trying to figure out, like, if I'm not planning to compile this to WebAssembly, I guess maybe this stuff relies on WASM. That's why they're saying not to use it in
hybrid applications.
In hybrid apps.
Are we sure that that's what they mean by hybrid applications?
Because I guess this .NET JS, it loads the WebAssembly runtime. So you're going to end up running the WebAssembly runtime just for the sake of calling JavaScript. So I don't know. There might be a better way to do this from.
Not to me, Robert. Hybrid. This to me sounds like I'm from the JavaScript world and I want to start using C#, like, and it's making that easier. But like maybe coming from the other side, he said this sounds a lot like I don't want to learn JavaScript with a lot more steps. Tell me
I don't know if I have a reasonable.
This is really cool.
Like use case for this. I just know that they took the concept of Blazor and removed all the UI framework stuff and just exposed this for people that wanted to do .NET in WebAssembly. Maybe there's something web-based that you want to write that doesn't have a lot of UI to it. Don't know what that tool would be, but maybe that's a thing. You don't want to have a big UI around it, but you want to have something running browser-based that does a lot of work, and you can write
like
it all
scripts
in
or
.NET.
things that do for you.
Maybe. Maybe there's a lot of weird stuff in enterprise apps where it's you open a console, you're just like pressing buttons to import data into a system type of a thing. We do that with a lot of like command line apps and stuff like that. A plugin, maybe. Plugin could be a thing. You could build your own framework. The Alyssa.NET framework.
Listen, I think it's freaking a fire, and I'm so excited to dive in deeper, just because it really is, I think, gonna help me learn.
Yeah.
I love it.
There was a need for this. They wouldn't have wrote it without a need for it. I just don't know who the target audience is myself, but I'm wondering where this will go with like WebAssembly on the server, like WASI. So you could technically, maybe this is setting up some like precedent for that, where we
honestly, that's what it sounds like, and that's what it feels like, and that's why I was so surprised that everyone's like, it is not for hybrid applications, because it feels like a stepping stone to something really freaking cool. Like it's like a needed step before we can do XYZ. So I don't know. I really think there's something like this was with these things are released in .NET 7, Ed. That's like
okay. Yeah, it's officially part of .NET 7 because it's in the release candidate.
What were the pieces? Because a lot of .NET kind of blends for me. What is new in .NET that's making this possible that wasn't possible before? Like, is it
Workload? This WASM tool workloads.
Okay.
And then the WASM experimental was the template only, from what I understand. So you can
template only, for what?
So this is all the libraries. So all of the dependencies that I showed in the project come from WASM tools, but this WASM experimental is the actual like template that I showed here, where you get like the index, the main.js, kind of like the hello world for this thing. So it'll set you up with a hello world app versus downloading this entire to-do.
Fuel is saying, I think it's a lot of efforts in tooling, also like making the debugger and everything work with the WASM Blazor.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. I don't know if I have a use for it, but doesn't mean nobody else does. So we'll see.
Thank you for coming on and sharing this with me. I am super pumped to go and play with it.
Definitely cool.
It's a to-do app in .NET. Come on, and they use JavaScript. It's sick.
If you go to this URL, folks, there's like all the new stuff. If you go
Which one are you?
devblogs, Microsoft.com/.NET, or just click on .NET up here. This shows you like all of the new .NET stuff coming. So you got Maui release candidate 1, ASP.NET Core release candidate 1, which has all the Blazor stuff in it. So this is actually talked about the thing that we just looked at, the .NET JavaScript Interop for WebAssembly is in there as well. But there's a lot of new Blazor-y things in here too. So looking forward to November when this stuff comes out.
I was reading chat. So you said looking forward to November, but can't you play with them all now? Like, are not all of them?
Oh yeah, I mean, we could use this stuff now. I'm just saying.
You can.
It's official.
Okay.
It's official in November. It's supported now with the release candidate.
I just didn't know if maybe parts of it weren't in it yet.
I
think they hold pieces
feature
back.
Complete when it's release candidate.
Okay.
I don't know.
Cool.
It's usually bug fixes from here on out.
Okay. Well, I am excited. November, you said We have,
Just
do we have
comes
a
out
date for
in
that?
November.
It's
I don't know if we
November?
have an absolute date. Well, I would,
Oh, okay.
hang on. We can speculate here. .NETConf.
Oh, they release it during that?
November, usually, yes. So I can't confirm or deny it will be November 8th through the 10th, but somewhere around this is most likely the
How
date.
big is that
So
conference?
let's see. How big? What do you mean, how
Yeah.
big?
Is it like a big in-person conference?
No, this is all virtual.
Oh. Has it ever
So
been in
there
person?
are some people that will go to the studio to record and
Yeah.
be live.
Yeah.
At what used to be the Channel 9 studios. Jeff, if you're
Yeah.
still around, what do they call that these days? Used to be Channel 9. I know
But
it's like
so,
Building 11 or whatever, but I don't know what the studio's called now.
so it's never been a
Microsoft
thing,
Learn Studio?
like a thing with like
Mm-mm.
people and the doings.
That has never been an in-person thing. There are, you can hold your own local event and like live
Like
stream
a
it.
watch party? Yeah.
Yeah, they have watch parties everywhere, but they haven't picked sessions yet. I know that, but it's 3 days long.
So my
And,
next
and it's 24 hours a day, I think.
trip is
So
October, November, right before this in October. I'm going to Warsaw for .NET Developer Days, which
yeah,
stinks that it
this is the
won't be out
crazy
yet.
part. Like it goes from 8 a.m. On November 9th to 5 p.m. the next day.
You're saying it's a constant stream?
Yeah.
Who is on it?
They have sessions from around the world, so they just keep going.
Oh, I see.
It's a big party.
I mean, that's one way to do it. Dang.
Yeah. Some of it's recap stuff too. I think we do, we have like these virtual attendee parties. Those happen throughout this as well.
Okay.
So there's kind of recaps of things too. And then it's all recorded and
That's
put on YouTube.
still a lot of content. Dang.
And they're half-an-hour sessions too. So it's like bang, bang, bang for 24 hours straight.
Feels that I really like the 24-hour stream.
Yeah. Too few drunk streams.
It's a lot of, that's just a lot. Like, I guess it gives you permission to like not watch the whole thing, because how would you? So
They do a really good job of getting it up on YouTube like the next
do
day
they?
too. Yeah. So it comes out like as one big stream and then they start breaking it up and publishing it all.
Oh, I was wondering about that when you said they published it to YouTube, so it's individual videos.
Both.
Oh, okay. Dang.
Yeah. So
Does YouTube have a limit for like how big of a video you can upload? Is that a thing?
I imagine there is, but I bet Microsoft has contracts on. They probably have an agreement with them to do bigger stuff, I would imagine. I don't know how live works on YouTube. I've never live streamed really more than an hour.
Oh, is that where it's actually?
Yeah,
It's
it's
not
live
just
streamed to YouTube
Oh,
and the Microsoft
oh,
one.
is it?
Yeah.
Fuel thinks it's 10 hours as the cap.
Is it 10 hours? Okay. They might have to break it in the middle or something, but they keep going. So they just start a new one, I imagine. So you'll see like there used to be anyway. Let's see playlists. There's a .NETConf 2021.
Oh, I don't think
full
there's a
playlist
limit.
here.
I don't think there's a limit for live streaming. I think we were just talking the limit for uploading the recording.
So
So
it
that's
looks like
what is it?
after they break it down, I don't see the full
Oh,
session.
okay. This is just
They
individuals.
broke it all down on here.
Okay. Well, that's cool. I didn't know
So-
that was even a thing. It's hard with like the different conferences to know what's an official like event from the team and what's just like a community event. So
Yeah, there's 86 sessions here that are on average about 30 minutes a piece. So that's a lot. Pretty cool. That was .NET 6. The .NET 6 one.
didn't NVIDIA just do a 41+ hour stream due to a 40-hour countdown? Is that a thing?
A 40-hour countdown? They might maybe. I mean,
That's hilarious.
It's one way to do a countdown, I guess.
A 40-hour countdown. Ah, that cracks me up. It's weird that they're not streaming to Twitch. That you think it's just going to be on YouTube?
They
they do?
They cast to both, yeah.
That's weird.
Like there's
once you're affiliate, you're not allowed to.
Lots of familiar faces in here. Hey, I know that guy.
Hey, are you doing this year?
They haven't picked sessions yet.
They haven't? Isn't that like tomorrow?
No, it's November. We got
fun.
all of October yet, Alyssa.
Oh, come on.
All of October.
So they have like an open CFP for this thing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It is just so weird because it's like it's like a community, not community event. Like because does the team do a lot of presenting too?
Yes. So the first day, like if you look here, it's this is all the keynote stuff, so PMs and whatnot. Second day is like the teams from 8 to 5, and then from 5 to the next day at 5. So for the next 24 hours, starting at 5 o'clock, it's all the community people.
When you did it last time, do they try to plan the sessions based on what time zone you're in?
Yes.
Or do you sometimes get like a 3 a.m. slot?
No, they try to give you a reasonable slot.
In your time. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool.
Yep.
What was it with StreamYard? Like, did you join a StreamYard link, or what did they use to do it?
It is.
It was.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's cool. Okay, I was like, is somebody back there with OBS like Skyping people?
Yeah, they do StreamYard, and then I'm trying to remember how it was done. I think there's 2. I think I'm trying to remember because I've been a part of a couple of these type of things, and they have they'll have one that you go into as like a waiting room, and then they'll be like, okay, join the official like live one now, and then they'll pull you in off the backstage for that. I'm trying to remember if this is the one that did that or if it was another one.
Did that.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like a Skype call into OBS.
No, it's definitely StreamYard, yeah.
Okay. I was just curious how they handled so many speakers.
Yep. You're all given slots to kind of come in, and they do like the day before, they do like mic checks and stuff with everybody. They bring everybody in like at their, I think you do this, they give you like a time frame, and they're like, everybody that wants to do a mic check, join, and then everybody just jumps on and they do it real quick with you. Make sure you don't have any problems like we had today. Which that stuff, it never works anyway. It's like, it's always when you go live, it falls apart, right?
Again, yeah, like the tech checks only go so far, especially with virtual. Like I get tech checks in person because you're like, does my adapter still work? How is my audio level, right? Like, but I don't know. There's with virtual, it's like, okay. It was like that 10 seconds ago.
Yeah, that's when all the ghosts come out. Is when you hit go live, then it goes berserk on you. Oh, you're live now? Time to troll you.
Well, it's what you get for not doing your goat sacrifice. So,
yeah. You gotta light a circle of candles around your computer before you go live.
TSA took my candles, right? Like, what am I supposed to do? And thank you for hanging out with us this afternoon.
Yeah, thank you. That was fun. Like digging into the new bits.
Oh my gosh, especially when they have anything to do with JavaScript. All right, goodbye, everybody.